of safety here. So, what if anything needs to happen here in terms of planning? Anything this pilot should have been doing differently from a planning point of view? Paying attention maybe to the rapidly changing wind conditions. Remember, every time you come into, always look for clues. What is the windsock telling me? What is a nearby flag telling me? What are the waves on the water telling me? And paying attention to those clues and adding it into your planning phase. Precision, making adjustments. As soon as you start to notice that something's happening, you've got to really be reacting with the correct control input and coordination at all times.
All right, the next one's a Bonanza VFR flight. I think we talked about this when Wayne was here a little bit, so we're not going to dwell on it for too long, but it's a VFR flight. It has an engine failure north of Long Island. From what I know of the event, air traffic data, audio communications, and from what we know of the pilot, fairly textbook response. He stayed cool, calm, collected, he was able to communicate with air traffic, but unfortunately we had 2 fatalities and one surviving dog. We have a kind of overview, it's kind of hard to see, but the parts out on ice look fairly straightforward, and then has an event just northwest of Mattatuck. You can see a little bit of the flight path here. Basically makes, the event happens around here, it makes an instant decision. I want to land in the water. We've seen how that turns out, usually pretty well, but we don't want to land in the water. What can we find? We know that especially in Mandarin, we know that the North Shore in this area, I think, is fairly rocky, not a great, like we will later in the day, talk about an aircraft landing on a beach. So, hey, I see some good fields out there. I think makes a choice. It seems like a good one. I'm going to pick out a location where I want to try to put this aircraft down safely. And it's unclear. I'm just going to say that. I think we all have some speculation on what occurred here. It's unclear exactly what happened decision-making wise. We know what happened with the aircraft in terms of it basically, you see that's the last radar point. This line right here, that's a line of small bushes or trees. It's a berm, and so its wing hits right prior to the berm, and it ends up flipping over, and that's the end result of that aircraft. A lot of fuel on board. It was planning on going up to, I think, Connecticut or Rhode Island. Massachusetts came from somewhere up there, and it was, so it was planning on a cross-country flight. The only thing I can talk about here when it comes to planning precision coordination is our understanding that there were conversations about this particular aircraft and the engine performance. The engine had been making some metal prior to this flight. It was in for maintenance. They did engine work on the aircraft, and it's unclear whether the engine was operating at 100% efficiency. Word of mouth, which at this point is hearsay. Mechanic has a conversation to say, hey, I don't think it's operating 100%. Why don't you go, test it out? Why don't you run it up? My choice in this case, again, if I hear any weird noises, I have any vibrations, I certainly don't want to go on a long cross-country flight. Maybe I want to stay over the traffic pattern for an hour, come back, have it checked out again. Ultimately, the pilot does choose to make a decision to fly. There's witnesses who heard the run-up, and the run-up didn't sound great, but I couldn't tell you what that means. But we know that there was an engine loss. So he responded as appropriately as possible. It looked like he had a good plan to try to make a successful emergency landing. And at the last minute, I think Wayne had shown a slide where maybe there were some vineyard posts. And so maybe he made an amendment at the last minute, the last few seconds, to avoid those posts, thinking that it would be an impact that would be survivable, and ends up upside down. So really unfortunate, and I feel for all I think a lot of you here are friends is, and it's unfortunate. So hopefully we can all learn something.
Quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned noise. Is it working or not? Oh, good. Hearing engine sounding differently. Yeah, just with noise canceling headphones. Any on that noise canceling.
I hear him enough to say, yeah, so I don't know, and I don't know for sure in this particular instance if noise canceling headphones were in operation, but yes, we've seen data over the years, the FAA and the NTSB have noted that occasionally where the operation of the noise canceling headphones, especially during run-up and critical phases of flight where you maybe want to hear the engine or other noises around the aircraft, have been canceled out, up to and including gear warning horns or any other kind of enunciation that just kind of gets, if not fully muted, at least diminished in what you hear in the headset, and it's not as prevalent as it needs to be. So yeah, it might be a good idea in a couple operations to say, let me turn that off just while I'm doing something. I know if that engine worked, maybe I want to listen with my bare ear, or maybe just the headset without the noise canceling function turned on for those few moments. So I think your hearing will be okay in the long term.
The other thing is that, you know, if you've had major work done on an airplane, maybe it's a good idea in your own procedures to do some pattern work for a while and, you know, just make sure that, because this way if you do have some kind of mechanical related thing, you're not comfortable with gauges showing the normal values that they show, at least you're right there in the pattern and you can land the airplane. Maybe you do such a flight the day before you're going to go on a much longer flight. Or you plan a shorter flight where you're going to be over land and near airports that you're familiar with before you go further. But again, hindsight, you know, we all sit here like Monday morning quarterbacks trying to look back at what we could have, what have, should have. Also, listen to the mechanic. You know, we also have a habit of when we have an idea in our head, or we want an idea in our head, we find the evidence to prove ourselves right. And this guy really wanted to make this flight. I'm not saying this is not all of us. The little bit of get-there-itis or the eagerness to do something or external pressures to do something may make us lean more on the evidence that this is a good idea when maybe you want to do something else also. So, again, we look at probably two of the more common themes that seem to happen over and over and over again. And one of them seems to be, you know, people running out of fuel that continues to keep happening. And then we also run into the circumstance where people fly VFR into worsening weather, where you're just flying. And remember, one of the things part of planning is also your personal minimums checklist. I don't know whether or not it's a good idea. I certainly would think that it's a good idea if two pilots that are professionals with all their equipment and all their training and all of their crew coordination had to take it down to 100 feet above minimums. That doesn't sound like the recreational day that I want to be flying around in the sky. I mean, if it happens and you're already up there and it's kind of unforecast, it's still really on you, but you know, you're not really planning it. But I don't want to put myself in that circumstance because it's not within my personal minimums. If you haven't been doing something in a while, you have to ask yourself, is this within my personal minimums? Am I going to be landing at night with passengers? Is this within my personal minimums? Not just is it legal, but is it within my personal minimums? So something to think about as well. So here we are in another circumstance at an accident number 6. We've got another helicopter incident. And departs the East 23rd Street heliport. And here we are facing a kind of a weather situation again. They're repositioning the aircraft to Linden, New Jersey. Continued flight into IMC. I don't know if you remember this incident when it was being talked about. And there's a loss of control incident that goes on. And one fatality, which is the pilot that was on board. And we captured a newscast, and no, we did go to Australia for this one.
New Yorkers heard that an aircraft hit a building today negatively panicked, even if it was just for a moment. That's what life after 9/11 is like in New York. Today it was a helicopter that crash landed on a high-rise building. It happened in Manhattan's theater district. Smoke was seen rising from the roof. Buildings were evacuated. It was the pilot who died. Police and the mayor say tonight it appears this was a tragic accident and not terror-related. So we get this there.
Reports of a fire on the roof of 787 7th Avenue flooded phone lines just before 2 this afternoon. 4-story office building and others nearby, emergency crews rushed in.
feel this rumble, you hear a bam, and then my chair moved a little bit, and I'm wondering what's going on.
These photos show the smoldering scene, parts of the helicopter reduced to rubble. The pilot, Tim McCormick, was flying this private helicopter at a high rate of speed through low clouds and heavy rain, crashing through airspace restricted due to its proximity to Trump Tower. NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill.
The helicopter took off from the 34th Street heliport, and about 11 minutes later, crashed on the roof across the street from where we are now.
McCormick was killed. The airport manager where he's based says he was an experienced pilot and very well respected in the aircraft community.
So in this particular circumstance, we're in a helicopter again, but it didn't look like this was an issue of helicopter skills. But I will say in general, the question is with most helicopters, there's only particular pilots that are actually instrument rated, and there's only several models of the helicopters that are equipped for and certified to be in IFR conditions. I'm not sure whether or not this was.
So this aircraft, the Gusta 109, is a very capable aircraft, and is authorized and certificated to fly in instrument meteorological conditions. There's no evidence that we could find that the pilot had an instrument rating, was factory or some other schoolhouse trained in this particular aircraft model, or that there was any kind of proficiency checks or training occurred in that aircraft. This, like you said, most helicopters are VFR only. They don't have the instrumentation, and I think one of the requirements is actually having an autopilot in the aircraft. Because there's a lot going on in a helicopter, and now you take away your visual reference and you're focused inside. You need help. You need collective that can stay where you want it to, the throttle. You need potentially the cyclic or cyclic, the control stick, to stay where it needs to. Just turn that away from the speaker. And then you got other things going on. You got to change radio frequencies. You got to pull out a chart. So any help you can get, whether it's a second pilot or an autopilot. So this aircraft is very capable. Now I'm going to throw in an external pressure. So we dropped the climb off at the heliport. Roughly $200 every 10 minutes you need to maintain that aircraft at that location. In other words, they don't want you lingering. This is not a come down, park, and leave it overnight kind of location because it's so small. So that could have been an external pressure. I want to get out of this location so that I don't have to charge, the client doesn't have to pay a lot of money for us to stay. But the weather was not cooperating. If you couldn't fly visual, and the pilot does attempt to depart and does start making his way south, the goal to get to New Jersey was to go around the lower Manhattan, the tip over by the Statue of Liberty, but the weather wasn't cooperating. I wasn't going to show you, I think what you saw in the video was enough. The press didn't get much additional photographs, but it was a mess. That aircraft was in lots of pieces. And luckily, it was contained to that one area. The way it hit the roof, it was sort of in a well with the air conditioning, compressors, and other mechanical equipment on the roof that sort of contained everything, contained the fuel, contained any of the additional parts from really coming off the building and injuring anybody else. So, we got lucky in that case. It has sparked a lot of the legislative activity. They're talking about trying to prohibit flights over Manhattan, helicopter flights, and most of the tours do not operate over Manhattan. This person really shouldn't have been in that location anyways, especially I don't think there was much contact with air traffic, but he was doing everything we could to try to maintain control of aircraft. All right, we're going to look now at an incident. So we've gone through our accidents. We've talked about some of the incidents we have. We're going to talk about one that happened this year, and hopefully it's not a good thing, and hopefully we learn some things. So I call it 4+1 because it happened here in this fiscal year. It was a Cessna 150, get some carburetor ice. We think, if this is one of those, you can't prove it. You can only prove everything else was working. And we have a couple videos, one news clip and then one a little bit of a training video, just as a refresher for those of you that are flying carbureted aircraft or that if you get an opportunity to go back to one, I know everything is fuel injected these days, it feels like, and you don't necessarily need this, but it'll be a good refresher for folks.
We saw the plane, and then all of a sudden it started to descend, and it just came in like a glider with no motor on. It just landed on the sand. Everybody was perfectly fine. It was like they planned it that way.
A small plane made an emergency landing at Point Lookout. The shaken pilot seen standing with police wearing a hat and sunglasses, and his female passenger in the backseat of the vehicle survived with no injuries. It was abrupt and unscheduled when the radio call came in about 2:25 p.m. The FAA says the Cessna 150 single-engine plane was experiencing problems about 9 miles east of JFK Airport, flying from Maryland to Long Island MacArthur. The pilot had to think fast, saw the strip of sand, landed in heavy winds, the beach practically deserted. 2 hours later, the pilot was asked to drive the plane like a car, taxiing down the soft sand to a nearby parking lot where the plane can be examined and towed.
It must have been a difficult landing because the way the wind is coming out of the south, it's not landing into the wind, but he did a great job. The plane's intact and everyone's okay.
Right. He did a good job. It was a challenging landing. Luckily, it happened this time of year and not, middle of the summer. So now let's have a little review of carburetor ice.
As most pilots or shade tree mechanics will probably recognize.
I heard that he was actually pretty low on fuel when he was, had that failure. Could that have been a cause for issue?
I'll say that we found sufficient fuel to continue the investigation.
As most pilots or shade tree mechanics will probably recognize, this is a carburetor and this is ice. And for pilots flying an airplane like this, one without fuel injected, when these two come together, the result can be very disturbing. Carburetor racing can occur any time of the year, even on a hot day, but the most prevalent times are during cool summer and early fall days with high humidity or visible moisture in the form of haze or rain. The Venturi effect of air passing through the carburetor lowers the temperature considerably, causing water vapor to freeze and eventually, without correction, can cause the engine to quit. The first sign of carburetor icing may be a slight reduction in the RPM of the engine or a loss of manifold pressure. By applying carb heat, a flow of heated air from the exhaust melts the ice and eventually allows full power to return. It may be necessary to adjust the mixture to smooth out the engine, so consult your flight instructor for proper usage. If you do have carburetor ice, be prepared for a further loss of power when carb heat is initially applied, as water from the melting ice is drawn into the engine. Be patient and allow the ice to melt. Power will be restored in a minute or so. If the carb heat is turned off before the ice is completely melted, the engine may fail entirely. And with a cold exhaust, you won't have enough hot air to melt the ice and restore the power. A check of the pilot's operating handbook will list the recommended times to apply carburetor heat for your particular aircraft. Anticipate and check for carburetor icing by applying carb heat periodically as an anti-icer rather than a de-icer. And finally, be aware that the use of motor vehicle gasoline or MOGAS can dramatically increase the temperature range for the occurrence of carburetor icing. Carburetor ice can be fatal, but learning to recognize the signs of carb ice and knowing the steps to take to prevent it can work towards making every flight a safe and enjoyable one.
Sometimes those videos, I'll call them historical videos at this point, are the best. Perfect textbook explanation. If you're used to flying one particular kind of aircraft, so the Pipers particularly, you only need carburetor heat when you suspect carburetor ice. And during pre-flight, you'll check it, but it's not a you don't always turn it on in a descent or a reduction of power like you would in most Cessnas, right? Carbureted Cessnas. So I think that might be a contributing factor. Long descent on their way, back from Maryland to Long Island, make a descent. It's basically throttle out, carburetor heat on. If you're not doing that sort of tied together, you could potentially descend for a while and build up that ice just based on the location of where the carburetor is and where it gets its warm air. So maybe some planning there, maybe some precision, maybe some coordination, but I think overall, very successful landing. I don't know if, impossible fuel state could have contributed mentally to the decision, But I think the decision was, hey, I'm not getting the power that I want, rather than continue to try to get to my destination and get it on the ground safely, and make the news. So it was, everybody was happy, and it was one of those things, we can't see anything else, there didn't appear to be any other issues. It most likely was carburetor ice, the conditions were perfect for it.
So that wasn't an engine failure though?
No, the engine didn't fail, the engine was losing power. Just remind me which one.
And repeat.
Yeah, so the question was, what made accident 1, which was the plane that ended up on Montauk Highway, an accident and not an incident? So, and I'm going to tell you, right now it's in the database as an accident. And that was basically the original determination by the inspectors on scene. The inspector in the office who did the investigation is trying to get it reclassified because the level of damage to the aircraft didn't meet the threshold to go from incident to accident. And the threshold, I think, is $25,000 of work or damage to other property. In this case, he obviously damaged to the nose gear and maybe to the firewall, but not to the strut or any spar in the wing. If there was damage to the spar, it involves removing the wing itself, repairing that, and it exceeded the threshold. So it's trying to get reclassified, but right now the NTSB still falls in the next.
But there was a similar incident where it said that we had been located with gear collapse, that classified as incident. Similar damage,
So gear collapses.
Can't hear back here.
Right, so the question was, there was a similar event to a gear collapsed Cessna 310 that was classified as an incident. I think I have to go look at the definition, but I think gear collapses don't count towards that criteria. And essentially, if the gear still works and you can jack it back up, then it's usually just cosmetic damage. Now, if you start talking about the prop with a sudden stoppage, now most likely the engine's going to have to get replaced or at least run out. And if you have to replace the engine, now you're into the $20,000+ range. So I'll have to check. Was that this event? No. No names. Okay. I will check on that because, yeah, for some reason that didn't. Paperwork disappeared on that one, let's just say. So we'll check on it. Any other questions on the event specifically, and then we're going to do a little recap. So why we're here, and Sal's going to help us bring it home.
By the way, I just want to tell everybody, did anybody see that a 182 landed on the California freeway yesterday? The day before? Emergency landing, lost its engine. You go onto the California School 182 landing. First person on the scene, I don't know if you noticed on the 150, the woman was on her phone right away. First person on the scene is running to the airplane to help them and videoing it at the same time. So, you know, for those of us who fly, no matter what we're doing, everywhere we go, there's people are videoing. When I talked to Ben about it, one of the things I wanted to share was my own story. I didn't have an accident or incident, but I'm going to give you my example. I'm a CFI student, getting ready for a check ride, going through all of this planning, precision, coordination, be precise, fly the airplane perfect. You know, the highest, CFI, you're supposed to fly at such a high level. Go out, I got a 7.5-hour ground, and I passed it. It was hard on the CFI exam. Usually a lot of people may fail that first. So I passed it, get into the airplane, the DP says, Sal, we're going to do a soft field and a short field landing and takeoff. Go out, do the soft field, I'm going through this process, go out, I'm coming. So now I take off from my short field, and now the tower extends me. I'm in California, by the way, San Diego area. So it extends me around the mountain, basically. And as I'm flying, what happens to me? My planning, I had never flown this extended downwind before. My precision gets off. And now on my check ride for CFI, and I'm at probably the highest level of, being able to fly this airplane that I'll ever be. I've flown it so much. I just got my commercial a year before. And I'm coming in to land the airplane on my short field, and I land short. What did that do for me? Anybody here is a CFI? What happened? Busted my check ride. So part of this I want to share is it happens, I was at the pinnacle of my example is as I came and entered the final, I was in a long final. I was about 3.5 miles away from the final, and I had to do short field on a short, by the way, on a short field, on a short runway. That runway is about 2,800 feet, the one that we were using on that airport. And what happens, I did not meet my own criteria. And I knew about it going in. Plan it, be precise on my airspeed, have my sight picture right, and coordinate the airplane. I was uncoordinated, not planned correctly, and had no precision, and the end result was not what I wanted. That was probably the hardest lesson I've ever learned in aviation, and the best lesson I ever learned in aviation. And that's just a perfect example from myself. And I'm fortunate, right? I only busted the checkpoint. What if I was trying to come in and land at Block Island and have Cirrus SR-22? It comes in at 15 knots faster, right? What happens? So that's a good example. It happens to everybody. It happened to me at the pinnacle of my flying, which I felt was the best flying I was doing ever in my aviation career. So, yes, sir. Any questions?
I've also heard the same with IFR. Once you get your rating, you think you're at the top of your game. You
Yes,
just got
sir.
this, everything's fresh, everything's sharp, and yet the recommendation is in your first flight into real IFR, go with another pilot who is IFR rated.
Yeah, I'm not a CFII, and there's a lot more experienced people here who will tell you, as an instrument pilot, I got my instrument rating in a Mooney, and I flew about 4 months and flew to Norfolk, Virginia. So I had been flying for about IFR 4 months, had done some approaches, flew into Norfolk, Virginia. Anybody here has ever flown into Norfolk on an instrument flight on 2-4 over the water? I did it to minimums with a 6-pack because I was trained well and flown. In 2019, in that Cirrus that I have that's much more capable, I would not do that because I'm not flying IFR as much lately, right? So it's just about skill level. I think these guys talked about it, what's your skill level, what planning is,
Personal
can you do it?
minimums.
Personal minimum. Any other questions? Yes, Dan.
I just have a comment on that. If during your instrument training, you flew a lot of actual approaches, 2 minimums, hand flying with a CFII, you'd be more likely to be willing to fly IFR at either to minimums if you've done it recently or slightly above minimums. Again, a lot of a lot of the quick instrument courses, you put the hood on. But if you go up and do a lot of flying in actual for your rating, I think you're a lot more capable to fly actual instrument by yourself than someone who hasn't done that.
I wanted to fly today. I'm going to end it quick. I wanted to fly today. So when I got up to come here, I was going to have my plane pulled out and take a quick flight. Because I haven't flown in a couple of months. In IFR, in actual IFR, when I look outside, if I lost an engine on takeoff, but I have to shoot. That's great. I lose at the low shoot fault. And you're at IMC immediately here. It's just, this goes back to the planning piece.
Just curious, would you be high enough to use a chute at that point?
You have to be 500 feet APL. Yes, sir.
I thought the chute only was
On the Cirrus? No. No, anything above 500 feet if you have a problem. Cirrus now, for those of you who know, this is a big debate, you don't want to get into this. Cirrus has it pull off and, pull it. Don't even think about it, pull. If you have a problem. So. Anything else you guys want to add, or are we? Questions? Thank you. Yes?
Address to the crash attack. I don't think that there's enough discussion about this was an inadvertent flight with IMC, right?
The flight was intentional. The continued flying into IMC was inadvertent, yeah.
So that means that we're probably talking about a lack of loss of safety awareness. I don't think that enough pilots can understand on the effects of rapid head movements when they're in IMC. Maybe the VFR